Hello and welcome back to the Captain's Quadrant. I'm your host, Joe Dove. With me usually is Jason Roy Gaston, but he had a transitional issue and he was beamed to the wrong planet, but he'll be back Thursday. Hopefully all will be well with him. But with me this week is a very special guest. He is the CEO and founder of the Neutral Zone Studios, none other than Ray. Ray, welcome to the Captain's Quadrant. Thanks for spending some time with us here to talk about your amazing studio down in Georgia. How's everything going and what's it like down there?
Well, actually, it's pretty busy, which is great. Thank you guys for having me. Really, I appreciate it. We've started doing our fan weekends again. We had the first one at the end of September, and we'll do fan weekends, one weekend a month until May. And this year we're doing something a little different as well. We're having the second weekend, which is just going to be an open house. It's not going to be a walkthrough, a guided walkthrough. It's just going to be come as you are and wander the sets, and we'll have people to answer questions, but it's a little more casual.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. So now that we're getting right into it, what was the idea that led you to start a physical Star Trek studio?
Well, the studio actually has been in existence. It started in 2010. We started by a group called Starship Farragut. And then in 2012, Vic expanded the studio. Vic Mignogna, who's the executive producer of Star Trek Continues, expanded it to include almost all of the sets from the original series. And I was in love with Continues. I watched all the episodes. I met Vic back in 2017 and kind of kept in touch. And I read in late 2017 that Continues had finished filming. And I wrote Vic and I said, basically, okay, now that you're done, what are you doing with the studio? Mm-hmm. And he wrote back, which I didn't expect, but he wrote back and he said, what do you have in mind? And I pitched a couple of ideas on what to do with the studio, and the rest is history.
No, it's really a great studio. I'm going to go and show the folks some of the amazing imagery that we have there, that you have. This is an amazing video that was done. Folks can see the full version in the links below.
Yeah, this was one of our first videos that we did when it first came over. And you might have seen in the very beginning some copies of the original blueprints. And that's what this is based on, are the original blueprints.
Wow.
My favorite places is the transport
room. That transport room is official. It looks incredible. I'd be hanging out there all the time.
When we get like older couples that come through to do the walkthroughs, I always say to the wife, listen, for $10 I can make your husband disappear.
That's fantastic. So is that bed very comfortable, or?
Everybody gets a laugh out of it, which is all I want,
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Everything to the T. It's incredible.
Yeah, the set was built probably engineering, which was the last set that was built. But the set was built by really hundreds of volunteers. And the attention to detail that Vic and the team put in is just unbelievable.
Yeah. It almost feels like that's the nacelle right there, and we're gonna go in the warp factor at any time. And here's the piece de resistance, the bridge set, incredible detail.
In fact, long after this video was taken, we installed a main view screen section.
Oh wow!
So we now have, it's not 360 degrees, but it's probably close to a full, round bridge. It's probably 350-degree bridge.
Wow, that's incredible. So that the replica bed I was asking earlier, is that very comfortable? Did you guys use new mattress foam? Is that some type of space that will?
Well, the bed in the captain's quarters is a mattress. Okay.
Yeah.
I just don't know where that mattress has been, but that's a whole other story.
Maybe some of the couples that visit you.
But the two things we do say to people when we do the walkthroughs is please don't lie down on anything because it's Hollywood, and things they're not always what they appear to be. And please don't climb anything because it's Hollywood. And, we want people to be safe, but it is a working film studio. So, we just want everybody to understand and be very careful when they walk through.
Right. So did you grow up as a big Star Trek fan yourself?
I started watching Star Trek in September 1966.
Yes.
So I guess the answer is yes, Joe.
Absolutely. So was there any hassle with Paramount to get the blueprints? Are you aware of, or they were pretty free flowing with that?
I know the blueprints, all of that information is available. It's you can Google it on YouTube and find it.
Oh.
And they came out with the original blueprint plans, but blueprints for everything are out there for every series. As a matter of fact, I believe it's every series. Next Generation's out there. So they're easily accessible. The trick is, taking a warehouse and turning it into a studio.
Right.
That is an undertaking that unfortunately I was part of. I came onto the scene afterwards. But pictures that they have, and at some point I should probably publish some of those pictures, but the pictures I have of the workers just building and construction and painting is just really unbelievable. And to walk through it and think that it was just an empty slab at one point is kind of crazy.
Wow. How long do you think it took for them to put it all together? Because it's so detailed. Do you have corridors that lead into the engineering room?
Yeah. So to answer your first question, they started building it in that building in 2012. And I believe engineering went in 2015. So it was built in legs as things were needed. It is a film studio. So there are some parts of the sets that were never constructed because they weren't part of a script. So like there's no Dr. McCoy's office, but there is a sickbay.
Right.
So it took quite a long time to build. And looking at the original blueprints, we do have that rounded corridor to make it look like you're walking around the ship. And it does lead directly into everything with the exception of engineering. Engineering is its own set, and the bridge, which in the original series was its own set as well.
Really fun question. I love the name of the neutral zone as the studio name. So how did that come about? And are you actually a Romulan spy?
I've been called a lot of things, Joe, but I don't think I've been called a Romulan spy.
First for everything.
How did it come about? Originally, the name of the studio was Stage 9 Studios. And it was Stage 9 because that's what they called it at Paramount. And that's what sort of the moniker they adopted for Star Trek Continues. And then a couple of years into the growth of the studio, there was a group out in the UK, I believe, who created a 3D virtual walkthrough of the Enterprise D.
Oh.
And they called it Stage 9. And they got a cease and desist from CBS at the time. And people thought it was us. You know, I have a good relationship with those folks, but they thought it was us. So I thought it'd be easier, rather than explain it all the time, to just change the name. And, you know, with a little bit of help, the Neutral Zone was born as a studio name. The real difficulty was finding a domain that was never taken using the Neutral Zone. Which is how I ended up with Neutral Zone Studios, because that was just a domain that was never taken.
Wow. That's funny, because we were doing the Captain's Quadrant podcast. We were shocked to find that that one wasn't taken, but 10 Forward was, and that was the initial, the place where everybody comes to drink. We thought that would have been a good podcast name, and it was. So somebody else added that. Oh, wow. It's so intricate, so detailed, so beautiful. How often do you have to like do maintenance? Because that paint must be like a special diagram, color, Pantone. Those little details mean so much. So how often is that having to be maintained?
Well, it honestly depends on the activity. So, you know, when we're, and we have a good crew that does maintenance on it. But when we do these walkthroughs that we do, generally it doesn't require too much, except you'd never see a vacuum cleaner on the Enterprise, right? But I
Right.
have. So there's a lot of vacuuming that gets done. We just went through a series of lights that needed to be replaced. The hall lights, for example, the corridor lights, those needed to be replaced. But when we do filming, because it's still an active studio, when we do filming, it does require, depending on what they've done, new paint, things like that. Sometimes things break. We had somebody flop down in the captain's chair, and that was a story and a half,
Oh
but that's
no.
okay.
They're supposed to just
But we have
slightly
good
shake.
people, and you know they do a lot of work to keep it looking that way.
That's great. That's great. And I noticed it's a not for profit. So funding is usually from visitors and donations, or how would somebody reach out and donate to help out to make sure that this is kept alive?
That's exactly right. Yeah, we are donation based. Fans have been good to us, and you know we wanted to make the. I don't want to say we wanted to make the studio, but we wanted to use the studio to give back to the Star Trek fans. Uh, there are people who come, and you know, people laugh, people cry, people use expletives when they see the sets for the first time.
Yeah, when I
Uh,
saw the video that you gave,
but
I was like, whoa.
yeah, exactly. And but really, it's people come and they don't know what to expect. You know, even if you look at it on video, you don't quite know what it is, you know, to open doors and, you know, people see the corridor and or engineering, or when they step onto the bridge. And it's 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 our pleasure to be able to give people something that they never ever thought they'd see in real life, you know?
Oh yeah, I know. That's incredible. And because I've seen it in the video format, I definitely want to come down and see it in person. So I'm sure I'm not the only one that wants to do that. So we have linked below in the podcast notes all the available links to some of the clips that I've shared, which are edited down so that I can share them with you in this podcast format on YouTube. So if you're listening to this on the podcast, be sure to come to the YouTube channel and check that out, because I'm gonna tell you, your jaw's gonna drop like mine did when I first saw this, I was like, wow, I spent a lot of time just in awe and then repeating it to see it again. And you're going to want to come down and see it. And I also noticed that some of the TOS originals have come down and hung out with you guys. I saw George and Nichelle stop by. Did others also come in and check out the studio?
No, actually, George has never been to the studio,
Oh,
but Nichelle did come and actually do what's called a sizzle reel, which is sort of a short introduction uh, to something that was going to be her life story called Breaking Barriers. And
oh,
unfortunately, she had a chance to complete it. But there is, I don't know, a 30 or 40-minute segment that we have on our channel called Breaking Barriers. And that's Nichelle's story of, her involvement with the original series back in the 60s.
oh, that's fantastic. So we should petition Bill and Walter and George to come down and hang out in the studio, reenact some good old times. That would be a great fundraiser event.
Yeah, 100%. It's it's difficult to get people to come simply because we're in the lower part of the southeast, and people are coming from the far reaches of the west coast. So it's sometimes difficult, but we get a lot of locals that come through, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'll be getting somebody from New Jersey and Texas coming through for sure. So be ready to see us in the studio. We're gonna get our uniforms together and make sure we have a full day of it. So I'll be looking
You
forward to meeting
better,
you in person.
you better.
Yeah. Oh, it's gonna happen. Absolutely. We've already been talking about it, so that's in the plans for sure. Just a question. I was noticing some of the videos on your YouTube channel. There's a lot of like really high quality production. I was wondering, is a lot of the post production handled in your studio as well, or folks go home and they have to edit on their own? Just curiosity.
No, actually, well, it's a double-edged sword.
Hmm.
Um, so we have our channel is Tales from the Neutral Zone.
Hmm.
And so there's a good crop of people that do the work for with us. I can't say for us because it's a collaborative effort. So we have, gaffers who do the lights, and people like Alan and Dan who do the audio recordings, the ADR stuff. Uh, I work with Joshua Irwin, who people might know from Avalon Universe. And he's a great director and director of photography. Vic has done a lot of work on a couple of the episodes that we filmed. And the editing is done by us. It depends on the amount of footage that we need to edit. We have sound people. We've gotten a new visual effects guy, Keith Hamilton. And if you look at some of the visual effects on the newer stuff, it's it's unbelievably terrific. But then we get other groups come through to record. So like Dreadnought Dominion
Mm.
records, films their own film. So it's up to them to get whoever they want to do the pre and post processing, the visual effects, that type of thing. So it's for us, for the neutral zone, we have a really good group of folks that we rely on to make that thing look as high quality as possible.
Mm. And it comes out fantastic. I have a small clip. I'm not sure what time period this is. One of the clips he gave me, um, but it just looks amazing.
This is the last one we just released. It was filmed in February, and it was released, I think about a month ago, just about a month ago.
Oh, okay.
Um,
This looks
and this is the
incredible.
work of Keith Hamilton. He's doing all the visual effects. Um, and Vic directed, and Josh Irwin was director of photography, and those guys knew exactly what they wanted to see. And to me, it looks just like Star Trek.
Absolutely. The film color quality, it's like I'm watching 1960s all over again. I love it. But like the effects beforehand are just out of this world. It's so good.
Yeah.
I'll count those chickens.
This one is called The Lost Starship, and we actually had someone independently was the scriptwriter.
Take good care of my ship, Commander.
Oh.
And yeah, he did such a marvelous job of bringing the old series to life in this episode. And, you know, Vic did most of the casting. I did some of the casting of the support people. And it's when you see it, when you're doing it, you can't really tell. You can see it on monitors, and filming is a little bit different than I think people imagine it really is. So you can't really tell how something's going to come out. But then when you release it and you see it, in a month, we've had over 100,000 views. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And we get really positive comments.
Absolutely. I can see the quality, the production, the acting.
And
it all came together very well. So definitely pat yourselves on the back, because that was really awesome. I was enjoying that.
exactly.
Yeah, it's very hard to accomplish something like that these days. So I wonder, have you ever had a little bit of an overzealous group come in and really want to shoot one of those like Star Trek 6 dogfights where like part of the ship blows up and there's stones that come out and all the fires and everything? Has anybody gotten that overzealous?
Well, I did.
Oh, yeah, me.
Yeah, me.
Critical hit on the Congo, sir.
What's he doing? Uhura, hail the Hawk's Talon.
Tal, you fool!
For the Romulan Star Empire.
Captain, the Romulan vessel is firing again. At the Enterprise.
Red hit, sir! Point blank range!
Casualty reports coming in from all over the ship.
Uhura, take the helm. Emergency medical team to the bridge.
Sir, the Hawk's Talon is arming its warheads.
Back us away.
Control not responding, Captain. We're
We filmed an episode called Doomsday, which is the prequel to the Doomsday Machine.
Ooh.
And it's the story of how Matt Decker ends up being the last person on the ship. And I took screenshots of every angle from the original Doomsday Machine and hung pipes and blew smoke and dropped wires. And so it's all doable. You know, when the ship rocks, you know, it's really the camera and the people, but hey, sometimes you can't tell the difference between the two. So yeah, the overzealous person was me.
That's awesome. You're living every Star Trek fan's dream. Let me tell you, that is just everything that we want. It was everything that I wanted since 1986 when I started watching Star Trek. And I started before Next Generation came out, I started with the original series. So that was what I was well versed in with my mom growing up as a little kid. So I always wanted to be Captain Kirk sitting in the chair, fire, you know? So that's amazing that you got to do that. What are your normal hours of operation for your business so that people can contact you and have an idea of when's best to reach you?
You mentioned earlier, and I think we both kind of mentioned or hit on it, we're volunteer based, we're not for profit. So we can't be open on a regular basis. So we're open. Originally, we were open a weekend a month. Now we're moving to 2 weekends a month. And you can go to our website, which is neutralzonestudios.com. There's a calendar, so you can find a month and the days, the weekends that we're open. And you just go on and pick a day, pick a date, pick a time. And that's basically it. And we really want to make this again accessible to everyone to come and walk through it. But we do have overhead costs. Unfortunately, the landlord expects me to pay rent every month.
Really? Is he not a Trekkie? He must not.
So I have to do that.
Yeah.
You know what? He's not a Trekkie, but his son is. So,
Oh, there you go.
Again, double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we do ask for a minimal donation, like, $20 per person, so that we can keep the lights on. But we really want to make it available for everyone.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And one of the things that you're doing that I absolutely love.
And to mention, donations are not mandatory. If you come and you don't want to contribute, it's okay. We're non-denominational. We'll take Star Wars people and, Wookiees and whatever. It doesn't really matter. So
That's great. That's great.
But it does help us. It does help us maintain the studio.
Right. Right. I mean, I think there's somebody in the universe that wanted to always have Darth Vader end up on the Enterprise. So Kirk versus Vader, I think, would be a great story. So I'm throwing that out into the ether. I think this could be a lot of fun for some future director and team. One of the things that you were doing that we touched on a little bit earlier was the Star Trek Fan Day. And I have a clip from one of the previous ones that you had mentioned and shared with me. I just want to show that really quick. So is the Fan Day like a convention? Like besides getting a tour, or are they also this? Did you ever have some folks, whether it be production folks, yourself and team and crew, or some of the stars come by, sign autographs like a Star Trek convention, like a mini one?
The answer is yes, that does happen. And for the most part, we do have people that would come back from Star Trek Continues. We have had some guests from the original, not the original series, but from Star Trek themselves. And they do come from time to time. It's an interesting situation in that it's not really a convention because you're walking people through for 90 minutes. And, they meet the guest at the tail end of that. So it's not like people are wandering around. We hope that with the open house that's starting this month, it kind of gets back into that convention format where people can wander wherever they want to go. And if we have a guest, then, they get to just hang out with those people. It's really, really very cool. We had, might have been last year or the year before, Robin Curtis.
Oh.
And if people aren't familiar with Robin Curtis, Savick in Star Trek 3 and 4.
Right.
And at the very end, a lot of people hung around just to meet her afterwards. And we set up a round table for her. And she sat on the bridge in the captain's chair, surrounded by fans. And she talked for an hour and a half.
Wow.
and it's just that you're never going to get back, you know?
Yeah. Oh, that is incredible. She is fantastic. I ran into her at a convention up here. We have our own. We don't have studios like you do. That what you have is very special. But we have Trek Long Island that we're good friends with, and meeting her was an absolute joy. And I'm sure it was spectacular for that day. Tell us about the open house that you're having. Give us a little bit more detail so people know what to come down for.
So, so now we have two things, if I understood the question correctly. But one is our fan appreciation weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So generally, they're built around having Vic Mignogna and myself, and we lead a guided tour or a guided walkthrough, really, of the studio, and we talk about the construction. We talk about old Star Trek. We talk about new Star Trek. We talk about the innovations that Star Trek brought us, how certain things came to be. And there's a lot of things that surprise people about that. But we start out, well, I guess I'll give a little bit away, but we start out in engineering because that's the first set we come to. And then we walk people down the corridor and we look at everything. And we point out not only things like, what I just mentioned, but we talk about filmmaking because people don't necessarily understand what filmmaking is all about. And we tell them things that people just, wouldn't notice even as a, not even, beyond being a casual fan. We get people who are, real, I hate using the word Trek because it sounds like you want to just pull William Shatner's sleeve off his arm, but they're real Trekkies.
Yeah.
And we end up telling them things that they would have never ever thought of or noticed. I'll give you guys a preview of something that we talk about. So we go into the briefing room, and one of the things I say at the end is, has anybody ever wondered why the shape of the briefing room table is so funky? Right? Yeah. It's weird. It's got all kinds of angles and shapes and people sitting on sides and what I mean, what the heck? Who was smoking what when they came up with that design?
Yeah.
And I found out just 2 years ago. From a gentleman named Dave Arland, who's a big collector of Star Trek stuff. And actually he plays the Romulan in that clip you were showing, the Lost Starship.
Oh.
But Dave came in and, we talked about it, and Star Trek was conceived, if you will, in 1964. Was only 20 years removed from World War II. Gene Roddenberry said, it was modeled after the Navy, and ships are named after, naval vessels, the Enterprise, the Yorktown, the Lexington.
Right.
And if you look at the table at the right angle, you'll see that it's a battleship.
Oh.
It's an aircraft carrier.
Oh, that's cool. I never knew
the shape of it is an aircraft carrier.
Yeah, totally get it.
No, nobody. I mean, I don't know how many people would ever have even thought that. Yeah.
No. Yeah, that's so cool. Oh, more reasons to come and see. You can see it for yourself. Oh, look at this. I know. Oh, that's so cool. The and of course the Romulan's the one that gave out all the all the secrets. It sounds like there's so much fun and so much to learn down in the neutral zone. What happened to fill the time during COVID? How did you guys manage to survive that hard time?
That was a challenge,
I'm sure.
because it was upon us before we even knew that it was coming. At least if it's a hurricane, you've got some time to prepare.
Right.
And I went the route of so many other groups, which was I would do live streams. I don't even think like StreamYard was a thing then, so I was using Zoom.
Right.
And I would line up guests, and I would do something, and people didn't quite get it. Not everybody quite got it, but I called it the Neutral Zone Unmasked, which are on our channel as well. And we had Bobby Clark, who played the Gorn, and we had
Oh,
some folks from the Star Trek Continues, and I had Bijou Trimble and her husband John, who are the people who did the letter writing campaign when Star Trek was canceled after the second season in 1967 or 68. So I
how
had
cool.
them on. I had the woman who wrote one of the original episodes. And so you just tried to keep people engaged. It was very difficult. It was very difficult. And I'd go into those, Joe, I would go into those saying, I don't know how I'm going to fill 10 minutes. And then an hour and a half later, we'd say, well, look, we've been talking forever, so it's time to go.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys survived through all of that. And it was a challenging time. We're glad it's, in the aft of the ship, right? Aft is the rear. I think that's right. But one of the things that I was going to ask you, and one of the last things I wanted to ask you was in the shots that you had given me of your studio, there's a really good shot of the Jeffries tube going in and out. That's on the side from besides engineering. How often do you end up hiding out in there if you're
there are times when I'd really like to hide out in there. But somehow people find me.
Oh, yeah. No designated hiding spots.
Yeah. There's people. That's a fascinating spot for people. Because again, you can see it, we do have a platform up at the top so we can film down.
Mm-hmm.
And that's usually the angle you see is either somebody standing in front of it or from the top down. So when you're at the bottom looking up, and it's pretty big, I've got to admit, it's pretty big, and it looks just like what you would have seen on TV. In fact, pretty much all of the sets look just like what you would have seen on TV. And so it's just a fascinating place to be.
Absolutely. And I know for sure, since you've actually been the one to break the room and go through a dogfight, and I know the answer to the question of what's your favorite room to be in film in on the set, but so what's your second favorite room to be in and film on the set?
My second favorite room, well, that's kind of a tough one. I would say my second favorite room is engineering.
Oh, wow.
And we're actually doing some constructive work on it now to expand the size of it a little bit from the width. So my second favorite one is probably engineering, but I have an affection for the captain's quarters.
Of course.
And I don't know that it would be, it's not for what might be the obvious reason, right? The guy, the head, whatever, sitting in the captain's chair. But I have my little mark on the captain's quarters. And when I did my first film, which was a vignette, I put a statue of Atlas holding up the world in the corner right behind the captain's desk. And that's my way of saying the captain has the weight of the world on his shoulders.
Oh, wow. That is a very neat little Easter egg. Very cool. So if all the people that are into the Starship mythos are now meeting the Greek mythos and can combine the two and really get a new experience. And that is just fantastic. I appreciate your time and sharing with me so many of these wonderful shots, studios, all the things that you've done there in the neutral zone. This has been absolutely amazing. And I highly encourage those who live around the area and those who are planning your vacation time to come down and visit the neutral zone. Like I said before earlier, we're going to have all the links to Ray's fantastic neutral zone studios. And how difficult was it for you not to make your office the bridge set?
Pretty hard.
Yeah.
I love sitting in the captain's chair. Yeah. I love sitting in the captain's chair. You know, we put in, I mentioned, which wasn't in the video you showed. We've got to probably update that. We do have the main view screen, and we do have a rear projection monitor on it. So, you know, we're orbiting a planet. We've got all the sounds going.
Oh, so cool.
And yeah, I could live there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Ray, thank you so much once again. Be sure, everybody, to go over to the Neutral Zone Studios and watch all the wonderful videos and tell us more where they can find you, where they can contact you, and how they can plan their day enjoying the Neutral Zone Studios.
That's great. I appreciate it, Joe. So neutralzonestudios.com. If you want to come for one of our fan weekends, just look for the calendar. Or if you want to come for one of our open houses, just look for the calendar. We are actually, for people who travel, and we do get people come. We just had a couple come from Italy to celebrate their husband's 50th birthday. And I made him close his eyes, and I walked him onto the bridge. And when he opened his eyes, he said, "This is the happiest day of my life."
Wow.
So if you're traveling, we're only about less than a half an hour from Jacksonville Airport in Florida, even though we're in South Georgia. We're only about 25 minutes from the airport. We have a lot of hotels, and we have a sister hotel that works with us, the Best Western. But if anybody is inclined, we can certainly use people's help. So there's a support us page, and it'll take you to, you know, Patreon, and even just a little bit every month helps. As I mentioned earlier, it helps us keep the lights on. And that's all we want to do, is keep it open for people.
That's fantastic. Be sure to go visit his website. Check out all the wonderful videos that have been shot in the studio, around the studio, about the studio. There's so much to see, and apparently there's more to come. So make sure you subscribe to his channel as well, so that you can see all the updates. And make sure you plan a visit, like myself and my co-host Jason, once he's recovered from his avian space flu. And we will be back with so much more. And we'll probably, if it's okay with you, when we come down there in person, we'll hang out, and then we'll do a little quick vignettes ourselves for some fun, and make sure that you're well taken care of. So again, from us at the Captain's Quadrant, thank you so much, Ray.
You're welcome, Joe. Appreciate you having us.
Absolutely.